I want you to imagine something with me. Picture yourself coming home after a long day of work, believing that the person waiting for you at home is the one who loves you more than anyone else in the world. That was my reality, or at least, what I thought it was. For years, I lived in that illusion. I had built everything from the ground up, every coin, every brick, every asset was born from years of sweat and sleepless nights. And I thought my wife was my partner, my comfort, my safe place. But one night, everything shattered. Before I continue the story, kindly like this story, subscribe and tell us where you're listening from. It was a Friday evening, I remember it vividly. I had arrived home earlier than usual. I didn't announce myself, didn't make noise, because I wanted to surprise her. Instead, I was the one who got surprised. As I stepped into the hallway, I heard her voice. Not the sweet, warm tone she usually saved for me, but a sharp, casual, almost mocking voice. She was in the living room, laughing with her friends. I paused. I don't even know why I didn't just walk in, but something in her tone made me freeze. And then I heard it. She said, "I only married him for his wealth. He's nothing without his money. Once he signs everything over in his will, I'll make sure he doesn't last long enough to enjoy it." My heart dropped. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. No, this was the woman I shared my life with. The woman who sat across from me at the dining table, who looked me in the eyes every morning, who told me she loved me. My chest tightened, and my ears rang as I heard her friends gasp, then laugh nervously. And she laughed too. That laugh. It wasn't the laugh of someone joking. It was the laugh of someone confident, someone who believed her plan was foolproof. I stepped back, my palms sweating, my throat dry. My instincts screamed at me to burst in, to confront her, to ask her if I was just a walking bank account to her. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. Because at that moment, I realized I wasn't just dealing with betrayal, I was dealing with danger. You know what it feels like when your whole world caves in but you have to stay calm? That was me. My body wanted to collapse, but my mind sharpened. If she was truly plotting to kill me, I couldn't let her know that I knew. Not yet. I quietly walked back out the way I came, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, staring at the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just heard. Every memory I had of her suddenly looked different. Her sudden affection when I mentioned updating my will. Her subtle questions about my properties. The way she insisted on knowing my schedules, my business trips, my health routines. It all made sense now. For years, I thought I was building a life with a woman who loved me. But in reality, I was feeding the greed of someone who only saw me as her ticket to wealth. And worse. She was willing to end my life to get it. I can't describe the storm inside me that night. Shock. Pain. Rage. But beneath all of that, something stronger was growing, resolve. I knew I couldn't just sit there and let her win. If I confronted her too soon, she'd deny everything. If I ignored it, I'd be signing my death certificate. So I did the only thing I could. I began to plan. The first step was simple, I had to protect what I had worked for my whole life. If she thought she was going to inherit my blood, sweat, and tears, she was wrong. And if she was planning to take my life for it, then I had to outsmart her before she even realized I knew the truth. That night, as I sat in the darkness of my car, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to fight her openly. I was going to take everything she thought she had in her grip, and place it out of her reach forever. But here's the thing, revenge is not always about anger. Sometimes, it's about silence. About moving so quietly that when you strike, the world tilts beneath their feet and they realize too late that you were always 10 steps ahead. And that, my friends, was the night I chose silence. The night I decided that my wife would never see me coming. Because if she wanted my wealth more than my love, then I would show her what it truly meant to lose everything. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I lay in bed beside her, pretending to be calm, while my mind replayed her words over and over again like a broken record. She slept peacefully, her breathing steady, her body turned slightly towards me as though she was the same loving wife I once believed in. But now, every little movement, every sigh, every smile she gave me, it all felt poisoned. Have you ever felt your heart breaking, but at the same time, hardening into something unrecognizable? That's exactly what happened to me. The man I was before that night, the trusting husband, the provider, the dreamer, died the moment I overheard her. What was left was someone colder, sharper, and ready to fight for survival. But I didn't show her that. No. I wore my mask. I smiled in the morning, kissed her on the cheek, and asked about her plans for the day. She had no idea that I had seen through the illusion. And that was my greatest weapon, my silence. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself, it was the pretending. Pretending not to know. Pretending not to see the way she carefully slipped questions into our conversations about my will, my assets, my business trips. Pretending not to notice when she scrolled through my phone a little too long, or when she lingered by the safe where I kept important documents. Inside, every smile I gave her tasted bitter. But outside, I acted like nothing had changed. Because I knew the truth, the moment she realized I was onto her, she would move faster. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. You see, betrayal cuts deeper than a knife. It makes you question everything. I found myself replaying our entire marriage in my mind. The day we met, was her smile genuine? The vows she made, did she mean even a single word? The nights we held each other, was I the only one who felt something real? And then the most painful thought crept in. Did she ever love me at all? The answer, as much as it hurt, was clear. No. She loved what I could give her. She loved the comfort, the cars, the house, the trips. She loved the image of being married to a man of wealth. But me, the man behind all of it, I was just the bridge to her greed. That realization nearly broke me. Nearly. But instead of letting it destroy me, I let it fuel me. I told myself, if she only values my wealth, then that is exactly what I will take away from her. The next morning, I picked up the phone and called the one man I trusted above anyone else, my lawyer. He had been with me for years, through business deals, contracts, and estate planning. He knew me well, and he knew my wife. When I told him we needed to meet urgently, he didn't ask questions. He just set the time. When I walked into his office later that day, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Because for the first time since I overheard her confession, I had a plan. I sat down across from him, leaned forward, and said, "We need to change my will." Immediately. He raised an eyebrow, surprised. Change it? To whom? I didn't even hesitate. To my driver. The words came out cold and sharp. My driver, he had been with me for years. Loyal. Silent. A man who never once betrayed my trust. He knew my routines better than anyone, and he treated me with more respect than the woman I shared a bed with. If anyone deserved my fortune, it was him. Not her. Never her. My lawyer studied me for a moment, as though trying to read between the lines. Are you sure about this? That's a very unusual choice. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said, my voice firm. And with that, we began the process. Every signature I placed on those documents felt like a nail sealing her coffin, not a literal one, but the coffin of her plans, her schemes, her greed. She had built her fantasy around inheriting my wealth, and with a few strokes of a pen, I burned that fantasy to ashes. But here's the part that made it sweeter, she had no idea. To her, everything was still moving according to her plan. She still looked at me with those calculating eyes, still pretended to love me, still thought her future was secure. Meanwhile, her entire castle of lies was already collapsing, and she didn't even hear the rumble. That night, when I returned home, she greeted me with a smile and asked how my day was. I smiled back and said, "Productive." Oh, if only she knew how productive it truly was. But don't mistake my calmness for forgiveness. Inside, I was boiling. The thought of her plotting my death, the thought of her waiting for me to sign my own doom, kept me awake at night. I would watch her sometimes as she slept, wondering what went through her mind. Did she dream of the day she'd finally have it all? Did she picture herself spending my money, living in my house, laughing with her friends about how easily she fooled me? If she did, she was dreaming a dream that was already dead. Because I was no longer the husband she thought she could manipulate. I was her biggest nightmare, the man who knew the truth, who stayed silent, and who was ready to make her pay without lifting a finger against the law. And here's the best part, she was about to walk straight into the trap, blindfolded, thinking she was the one in control. If chapter 2 was about heartbreak, then this chapter is about silence. A silence so sharp it cut deeper than any confrontation ever could. After I changed my will, I felt lighter, but not safe. I knew the war wasn't over. She still believed she had me wrapped around her finger, and that was my advantage. But to keep that advantage, I had to play my role perfectly. I had to be the husband she thought I was, while secretly dismantling every single piece of her plan. So, I smiled more. I laughed at her jokes. I asked her about her day. I even surprised her with little gifts, just to keep her convinced that I was blind and dumb to her intentions. And oh, how she basked in it. She thought she was winning. But in reality, every word I spoke was calculated. Every gesture, every nod, every kiss on her forehead, it was all part of the performance. Because when you know someone wants you dead, you don't confront them with anger. You let them believe they're in control, until it's too late. My lawyer, the only one who knew the truth, handled everything discreetly. The driver's name was now on every important document. I even updated the security of my assets, locks, safes, accounts, tightening everything so that not a single coin could slip into her greedy hands. And the beauty of it was, she noticed nothing. She thought she was clever, but her arrogance blinded her. There were moments, though, when it almost slipped. One evening, she came to me, her voice soft, her touch gentle. She asked, "Darling, have you thought about finalizing your will yet? You know, just in case anything ever happens." I looked her straight in the eyes, my heart hammering in my chest, but I didn't flinch. I smiled, kissed her hand, and said, "Yes. Don't worry, it's all taken care of." She sighed with relief, hugged me tight, and whispered, "Good. That makes me feel so much safer." Safer. She meant it made her feel closer to the prize. Inside, I wanted to laugh. Because the very thing she was waiting for had already been stolen from her hands. She thought she had me dancing in her little game, but I had already flipped the board without her knowing. But silence is heavy. Keeping such a dangerous secret while living under the same roof with her, it wore on me. Every meal we shared felt like a performance. Every night we slept in the same bed felt like lying beside a venomous snake, knowing one wrong move could trigger a deadly strike. There were nights I'd wake up suddenly, my chest tight, half expecting to see her standing over me with something sharp in her hand. I'd check the doors, the windows, the locks. Paranoia became my shadow. And yet, that paranoia kept me sharp. It reminded me that this wasn't just about money, it was about survival. One day, I overheard her on the phone again. She was speaking in hushed tones, pacing the living room. "He'll sign it soon," she said. "Once that's done, I'll handle the rest." Handle the rest. Those words chilled me to my core. She wasn't bluffing. She wasn't exaggerating. She was serious about ending me. If I had any lingering doubts, they died right there. This wasn't a woman plotting in theory, this was a woman setting a countdown on my life. And yet, I stayed silent. Because the trap wasn't ready to spring, not yet. I started spending more time with my driver. I made sure he knew how much I appreciated his loyalty, even without telling him the full story. I knew he'd find out one day when the truth exploded, but until then, he just thought I was being generous. That man became my anchor, loyal, trustworthy, and unaware that he was now the heir to everything I owned. Meanwhile, I watched my wife play her role. She cooked my favorite meals, laughed at my jokes, dressed beautifully for our dinners. To anyone looking from the outside, we were the perfect couple. But behind that smile, she was sharpening her blade, figuratively, maybe even literally. And I was sharpening mine in silence. There were times when I almost confronted her. When the anger bubbled so close to the surface that I wanted to scream at her, tell her I knew everything, watch her face crumble in shock. But I held back. Because the sweetest revenge is not rage, it's patience. I wanted her to see it. To feel it. To watch as the future she thought she owned slipped right out of her grasp. I wanted her to beg, not because I would save her, but because I wanted her to realize too late that she had lost it all by her own greed. So I waited. And I smiled. And I let her believe she was the clever one. Because sometimes silence is the loudest weapon you can wield. And mine was about to roar. There's a moment in every game where the mask slips. No matter how careful the player is, no matter how much they try to keep their cards hidden, the truth always finds a way to the surface. For my wife, that moment came sooner than she expected. It was a Saturday morning. The sun was bright, the air calm, one of those deceptively peaceful days where nothing seems out of place. I was in my study, sipping coffee and reviewing some documents when I heard it. Her voice. Not the sweet tone she used with me, but sharp, panicked, and almost trembling. She was on the phone. "What do you mean my name isn't on it?" she snapped. "That's impossible. Check again." He said he signed it. My heart pounded, but I stayed still, listening from the shadows. Silence followed, then her voice broke, louder, desperate. "No. This can't be right. He wouldn't do that. I've given him everything. He promised me." I nearly laughed at that last line. Promised her? I hadn't promised her anything but the very role she played in my life, the betrayer. She stormed into the study moments later, her face pale, eyes wide, clutching her phone like it was her last lifeline. "Why?" she demanded. Her voice cracked, her hands shook. "Why isn't my name on your will anymore?" I set my coffee down slowly, deliberately, and leaned back in my chair. For the first time since this entire nightmare began, I let the mask slip. I looked her dead in the eyes, and she must have seen it, the coldness, the truth, the fact that I knew everything. "Because," I said quietly, "I know." Her lips parted, her breath hitched. She tried to play dumb. "Know what?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk. "I heard you. That night. Telling your friends you only married me for my wealth. Laughing about how you'd kill me once I signed everything over to you. You think I'm blind? You think I'm deaf?" "No, my dear. I was listening." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. She froze, her face draining of color. Then the tears came, fast, desperate, almost theatrical. She dropped to her knees, clutching my arm. "Please, please, it was just a joke. I didn't mean it, I swear. I was just trying to impress them, that's all. A joke." That's what she called it. But I remembered every word, every cruel laugh, every plan hidden in her tone. This wasn't a joke, it was intent. I pulled my arm away slowly, standing tall above her. "A joke? Is that what you call plotting to kill your husband? Is that what you call marrying me only for what I own? Tell me, when you looked into my eyes all these years, was that a joke too?" She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No. I love you, I do. I was stupid, I didn't mean it, I swear on my life." Her words were noise to me now. Empty, desperate noise. I walked to the window, staring out at the bright morning sky, letting her sob behind me. For years, I had believed in her, trusted her, shared everything with her. And she had repaid me with betrayal and greed. And now, as she begged on her knees, I felt nothing. Not love. Not pity. Nothing. "You wanted my wealth," I said coldly, turning back to her. You wanted my death. Well, congratulations. You got half of what you wanted. Because the man who loved you is dead. All that's left is the man who won't give you a single coin of what you were waiting for. Her cries grew louder, her hands reaching out as if to pull me back into her illusion. Please. Don't do this. I'll change, I'll be better, I'll prove it, just give me another chance. But I only shook my head. You don't get another chance, I said. Not after plotting my death. Not after showing me that I was nothing but a wallet to you. You've lost, and now you have to live with that loss. Alone. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. For the first time, she wasn't in control. The woman who had laughed at the idea of my death was now begging for scraps, and I gave her none. I picked up my coat, walked to the door, and paused. She looked up at me, her face a mess of tears and smeared makeup, waiting for me to soften, to forgive. But I didn't. This marriage is over, I said firmly. The divorce papers are already being prepared. You'll leave with nothing, just as you came. And when you look back on this moment, I want you to remember one thing: you destroyed yourself with your own greed. And with that, I walked out, leaving her broken on the floor. That, my friends, was the day the confrontation happened. The day her mask fell, and she realized that the man she thought she could outsmart had been 2 steps ahead all along. But it wasn't the end. No, the final blow was still to come. There's a kind of silence that follows a storm. It's not peaceful, it's heavy, unsettling, like the air itself is holding its breath. That's what my house felt like after the confrontation. The walls that once echoed with fake laughter and empty promises now stood still, cold, and suffocating. My wife, no, my soon-to-be ex-wife, lingered around, her eyes swollen from crying, her body restless, like a thief caught in the act who didn't know where else to run. But me? I was calm. Because I knew what was coming next. The divorce papers. I worked with my lawyer quickly, silently, and ruthlessly. Every clause, every detail, every piece of evidence was lined up perfectly. The will was changed, the account secured, the assets protected. There was no loophole, no chance for her to claw her way back in. She had built her entire life around the belief that my wealth was her future, and now, with one signature, I was about to rip that illusion apart forever. When the day came, I didn't warn her. I wanted the shock to be raw, the blow to be unforgettable. I came home with an envelope in hand, placed it on the dining table, and sat across from her. She eyed it nervously. What's this? I leaned back, my voice calm but edged with steel. Your freedom. And your punishment. Her trembling hands tore the envelope open, her eyes scanning the papers. Divorce. Clean. Brutal. No alimony. No share of the estate. Nothing. The look on her face was priceless, shock, rage, despair all tangled together. No, she whispered. Then louder. When it was over, she packed her things and left the house. No servants to help her. No driver to carry her bags. Just her, dragging her suitcases out the door, her eyes filled with bitterness. I stood at the window and watched her go. For a brief moment, I wondered if I should feel sadness. After all, I had once loved this woman. I had once believed she was my partner for life. But as I watched her stumble into the street, stripped of the wealth she had tried to steal, all I felt was justice. She wanted everything. She left with nothing. And that, my friends, was the final blow. But here's the truth I want you to take away from my story: betrayal doesn't just steal your trust, it tries to break you, to blind you, to make you doubt your own worth. I could have let her destroy me. I could have ignored the signs, handed her everything, and ended up 6 feet under while she laughed her way to the bank. But I didn't. I chose silence. I chose patience. And in the end, I chose revenge. Not the kind of revenge with blood or violence, but the kind of revenge that leaves the betrayer to rot in the prison of their own greed. Today, I live freely. My wealth is secure. My driver, the man who was loyal when it mattered, is the heir to everything I built. And my ex-wife? She's just another ghost in my past, a woman who could have had the world by my side, but instead chose to lose it all through deceit. So, when people ask me if I regret it, I tell them no. Because sometimes, the sweetest victory isn't what you gain, it's what you make them lose. And she lost everything. And that's how I turned betrayal into victory, by choosing silence, patience, and the sweetest revenge. If this story gripped you as much as it gripped me living it, don't just leave quietly, hit that like button to show your support, subscribe so you never miss the next thrilling tale, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. I also want to hear from you, drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Do you think my revenge was enough, or would you have taken it further? Your thoughts matter, and your engagement keeps these stories alive. Until the next one, stay sharp, stay aware, and remember, sometimes silence is the loudest revenge.